Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the rank 1 Terran player in the world in the red, the Frenchman from Team Liquid. We have Clem, facing off against the former world champion Zerg in the blue, the Italian stallion. It's Reynor in a best of 5 Terran versus Zerg showdown on the new StarCraft 2 balance patch and part of the $10,000 Homestory Cup 29 tournament. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. Put me kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,875 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper comes in, 6 Zerglings there to meet and greet it. As Reynor delaying his Zergling speed somewhat to make sure he could potentially get a third hatchery. But Clem, he's watching closely. He's trying to see if any drones slip out. But unfortunately, he was deceived, as a drone has already made its way down and into the... just sides off over to the side. And the Overlords will spot an opportunity. Clem didn't check his corners. Well, that's usually where they get you. Pops into the natural, and that conveniently placed employee entrance. Little Brenda bounce over to the side, and the queen going to be mildly inconvenienced. But the creep tumor on the high ground and the fact that it's a ramp allowing, well, preventing vision means that the creep spread will start early. And the Reaper, it might be able to pick off one of the drones. Gets in, dodges into a spore crawler. But Reynor, with a delayed Zergling speed, a quick third hatchery, puts him off to a relatively strong start. Getting those hatcheries early with a marginally quicker larva spawn rate. About 8% quicker now on the newest patch. Queens, still 175 minerals. Hatcheries now 300 as opposed to 275. But we start with 8 workers, which for the most part and so far I've seen from the top tier players means we're going to spend another minute or two to get to a very similar location. Which is why I'm not too surprised to be describing a Cloak Banshee on the way. With the 1-1-1 start from Clem, the Destiny Cloud Fizz build, as I heard it called in some sort of fever dream or something, but the barracks, the factory, and the starport, it gives you access to everything. All right, a little bit of everything, potentially, all of the time. But eventually you do have to focus down either the mech or the biotech path. But having Hellions and Banshees will prevent any sort of rapid expansion from the Zerg, at least without a significant amount of risk, which Reynor is fully accepting, as he's just going to sit back, build up the Queens, and try to zone out the Hellions and Banshees for as long as possible. Now, Clem, third command center is on the way. Not particularly early, but certainly not late. It arrives exactly when he means to. And almost certainly going to be more barracks behind it. But so far, the losses are, I believe, a few minerals from trying to do a spore crawler trick to save one of the drones. But no losses thus far. The Banshee loses a little bit of HP as the knitting needles from the Queens will repel it from one of the bases. But another Queen defense team will zone out the Hellions over to the left side. There's 7 Queens so far. Well worth it and counting. But the lair's not quite done, which means some extra damage on some of the Queens, as the Frenchman is an absolute expert at making sure they're uncomfortable, to say the least. Another revolutionary tactic with this early Banshee, and loses one, but there's a whole King Henry of Queens behind it. Transfuse keeps another alive. Straying into range of one of the spore crawlers, and get off my creep! Brenda, not in game 1! I don't know, shut up, Susan, I don't... One of the Banshees knocked out of the sky. Another one dangerously close, taken down as well. A Queen incinerated, but well worth it. Trading a Queen or 2 for Banshees. Look at the drone cap. Okay, it's the middle icon over there with the little wrench next to it, in case you were just guessing the whole time. But 66 to 46 workers. As Reynor, the Queens do not cost larva. They create the larva, which is why they're both the blessing and curse throughout the early game, where they're the only antia, they're most of your macro, they're incredibly important for creep, but they're relegated almost entirely to defense, at least until the creep starts to metastasize more aggressively. So A macro hatch already on the way. Dozens of Zerglings on the field, but behind it, Clem, building up those barracks. He's got the 1-1 almost exactly the same time. So both Terran and Zerg upgrades at the same tier take exactly the same amount of time to complete. So it's pretty easy to tell who's going to be ahead. As a Reynor, pretty dead even on the upgrades. And that's a little bit harder to do with Zerg because you also have to go with the lair and figure out whether any further tech and how they're going to get your Zerglings in the base before Clem closes the door, rather. A lot of SCVs will pay the price, and Clem is coming all the way back home. Oh, no. His unit's caught in purgatory in the center of the map. He kills a refinery. Now, of course, the Zerglings are locked in here with him. Gets a grand total of 2 SCVs, which is obscenely low for the amount of time those Zerglings were inside of the base. So real superficial damage, emotional damage. But overall, not particularly long-term economic damage, which is the more dangerous part. But losing the Hellions for free to another clutch of Zerglings over to the right side certainly doesn't hurt. Well, if you're Zerg. It definitely hurts if you're Terran, but... Well, do they deserve it? A second factory on the way. One of the main buffs to Terran in the new patch is Widow Mines, the unit that everybody loves and nobody has a mixed opinion of. Like and subscribe if you disagree. Widow Mines now fire 20% faster. From the time they burrow, well, once they start locking on, they fire 20% faster, just about. I think it's actually like 21 or 22, depending on exact decimal points. But that means it's significantly harder to avoid the Widow Mines, but a little bit easier to potentially drag them into the Terran army. And other things we try to pretend is a nerf to Terran, but is clearly a buff. The siege tank, hidden behind the pillar, and it's just Marines out in front. 137 supply apiece. Baneling speed is done, but with that siege tank and this full division of Marines, Clem still has a very dangerous position. The Queen's trying to hold the line. Infestor's on the way. The hive has already begun. As Reynor climbing that tech tree incredibly fast. Clem does have a 4th command center. Another Queen transfused, not nearly enough. Banelings trickling through. A few Marines caught in the crossfire before he could slurp them up into the medevacs. Enough to make sure the Zerglings aren't easily going to overrun, but a double-double. He's got the drops over to the left with the siege tank, the drops over to the right. Reynor splits off a bit to deal with it. The Banelings tries to target, thinks better of it. But Reynor is not bothering with Hydralis, not risking Mutas, but instead is working directly on Hive Tech. Though the fact he's hitting Hydras now is interesting. He gonna rush to Lurkers? A Baneling mine directly on top of the base? Will it work? Yeah, I'll take it. It's so unlikely that somebody would burrow there that it actually works out. Takes some of the wind out of the sails of Clem's push here, but he just decides to change tacks. Meanwhile, the Queens have realized that their services are needed over to the right side more than anything else. The Baneling mines, but the scan doesn't quite catch it. The Widow mine's being dragged out. Another Baneling knocks the medevac out of the sky. Oh, friendly fire isn't, as the Widow mine, the only thing it doesn't hit are fellow Widow mines, which have, I don't know, fancy-shaped armor or something, so that way they don't take friendly fire damage. I guess the Banelings are the same if you're going to be weird about it. But Baneling mines scattered throughout. And Reynor, not to be outdone by the Widow mine so far. The Infestors, the thing is, with 25 damage, medevacs have 150 HP. It takes 6 fungals with nothing else happening to deal with it. The Baneling mine right next to the Widow mine, somewhat awkwardly. The Zerglings trickling through, trying to drag out the mines themselves. A few decent connections. Drilling Claws is done, making him even more deadly. Whips out another shot, slams into the Overseer, and the drop comes out. The Zerglings and Banelings just a little bit slow. Clem picks up, he dodges the fungal. Meanwhile, keeps the pressure on over to the right side. Hydra's added in. Target fire, Baneling still gets the shot off from the grave. And again, awkwardly, the Widow mine right alongside. But unfortunately, Banelings don't have range nor hit air. So he has to wait for them to walk right over it. Meanwhile, Reynor, pressured heavily. Maybe enough damage with 2 fungals to almost kill the medevacs, but almost is not going to be good enough. Hey, boys. Jacked up and good to go, am I right? Am I, boys? Changeling at least gets an idea of what's going on. But the Widowmine count is getting quite problematic. Well, to be honest, for both sides, as Clem not very successfully dodging his own Widowmine hits. But Reynor is down under, is at 180 supply. Clem is maxed out. He's got a fusion core already on the way. 3/3 upgrades, only +3 carapace. Lurker range, rather, is going to be the choice for Reynor. Trying to keep this at bay. Something to eviscerate, and finally he gets the catch, and he gets the kill. Holds the Marines down, keeps them from getting into the medevacs, and rolls right through with the Banelings. And he takes out one wing of this attack. Another Baneling. Did he just detonate one Baneling? The Marines in autumn colors. They're going to be in rehab or the unit's lost tab soon at this rate. Widowmine spotted on the field. He sees the indentation, but another huge group of units. The Zerglings trying to scamper by. Has to be incredibly careful. The mines from either side. Widowmine's dragged out, but the medevacs have already gotten away. Meanwhile, another attack over to the right. Knocks out some of the queens. One of the medevacs is taken out, but Clem keeping the pressure on, holding his feet to the metaphorical fire. And the Widowmines are making it very difficult for Reynor to do anything but play defense right now. Just cleaning him up is a task and a half. The medevacs, again, badly bruised. A strong gust of wind would blow him away. Or a spore crawler, if he flies right into it, loses 2 more medevacs. Clem, a bit of a miscue, and that will cost him a lot of his momentum. As Reynor now has a bank, and he's actually held on to his bases despite the excruciating pressure. These medevacs are almost entirely out of energy. The Widowmines thinning some of the wheat from the chap. He takes down the rocks, and he crushes his own Widowmine, and then will open up a little bit of a better choke point. But he saved the day with the Terran there for a moment. But behind all this, Clem has actually taken an income lead, as Reynor just simply cannot get anything done. He cannot counterattack. He has a Cyril Fester out there, paying some respect to his teammate, who might be the only player who can ever take the initiative against Clem. And despite Reynor's speed, Clem just... he seems to be a step ahead. There's ghosts on the way. Caduceus Reactor. A huge chunk of Zerglings right down the center. And the door is open. Does he have adrenal glands? He does. 2/3 upgrades. He just started +3 melee, though. Quite an oversight out of Reynor, considering he has the resources for all the upgrades several times over. Meanwhile, the Bile trying to cut off some of the reinforcements. The Zerglings will burrow, force out at least one more scan. There's no... yeah, well, he saw them burrow, is one way to keep track of it. The ghosts on the way. Vipers for Reynor. He's lost 400 Zerglings, 16 Banelings. Again, those are the ones just lost before they attacked, because they're not lost if they attacked. They succeeded in a certain fashion, at the very least. Still tracked in resources lost, though. The Infestors underneath. Clem now 4 orbital commands, which is not the oppressive number you sometimes see in the extreme late game, but the Liberators, the Venn diagram of freedom from extreme range, and the Queens are caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, over to the left side. Well, here we go, as Clem sieges up yet again. And the Widowmine's gonna thin out a lot of the Lings and Banes. The Liberator tying up many of the Hydras. Comes back over to the right side, stims in. The transfuses! Yeah, the Lurker who lived! But it's not good enough. Zergling counterattack in the 3rd. The Lurker held the line for so long, but Clem erases it. Meanwhile, the Zerglings eviscerating some of the ghosts at the back. He's going to swing into the left side. Meanwhile, over to the right, Clem has been able to take out the hatchery, and Reynor looking to trade some bases of his own. But unfortunately, Clem holds the line for now. But the Hydras, the Lings, the Banes, the Zerglings going to cancel another command center. Clem repositioning. He's pulling everything back. But Reynor is bringing almost everything to bear down the center. Well, more like the center top. As the Marauders and Marines going to challenge yet again. Zergling sprinting by, but the Liberator and Widowmines will pay an iron price. The Hydras able to catch finally a fungal. No parasitic bomb, but the planetary is annihilated. Meanwhile, the Zerglings engaging the ghost heads up. But with the medevacs, they're able to hold for now. Reynor takes a victory of sorts. But at what cost? As the Widowmine's going to slam in again, the Liberator's at a choke point. And it's unclear who comes out ahead. But so far, Reynor, a slight lead in supply. He has more in the bank. And continuing to move forward. The Widow Mines, an awkward position. The Lurker's right there. He'll actually scan to get a hit on the Lurker. The transfuses from the few remaining queens. As the creep has been driven almost all the way back. Did he see the worm sign? Does he see it? Oh, it's kind of obvious here. Really, the tile set of the map actually makes it significantly easier. But the Liberators! Does he have a Spire? Technically, yes. One Viper knocked out of the sky. Snipe can no longer be interrupted by damage, though it does cost more energy. So if they're able to line up the shot, there's no stopping him unless you're able to run away quickly enough or kill the ghost, which, you know, is a more permanent solution. The Zerglings still keeping Clem's economy. Reynor has 2,700 minerals, 2,200 gas in the bank. An EMP. Oh, he got it underneath. The Liberator sieging up, and what's Parasitic Bomb doing terrible, terrible damage, but still Clem manages to split off the correct medevac in time. The Planetary Fortress is backing things up. The Parasitic Bomb scattered the damage throughout, but the fact that Clem was able to pick out the correct medevac and move it into a more comfortable, well, a less murderous position, more accurately. Liberators have an anti-air attack, and using it to take out a chunk of the Overseers, which is the real tax in the late game. You desperately need detection at all times. Between the Widow Mines and potentially the Ghosts, and just vision in general, if you don't have the Overseers, you're probably not going to have the game. Suddenly, Reynor is down to 180 supply. He's spending all his money. An Ultraless Cavern is on the way. The Zerglings run in for the umpteenth time. And Clem should be able to deal with it. The reinforcement should be enough, even if he loses some of the SCVs. And Clem just driving a wedge through the right side of the map. There are infestors right underneath. The Olympic Rings of Freedom here. The liberation zones overlapping. And he's cut off the natural ramp. It's going to be almost impossible to break out if Clem ever breaks in. The Ultraless Cavern is potentially vulnerable. Clem at 149 army supply, 150 to just 100. Another Viper, Parasitic Bomb, Snipe, knocks the Viper out of the sky. A single medevac in trade. Ultraless Cavern is done. But I fear it may never be of use. But the Infestors! At the last possible second, another fungal chains it together, and he gets everything he ever needed and more. He's gonna knock the Liberators out of the sky. He's gonna sweep the Marines and Marauders off the ground, and the medevacs will be forced to take the few survivors, the dregs of the army back home. The medevacs themselves in disrepair. The Marines and Marauders beaten down. But Reynor does not have the income. He does not have the production. He lost all of the bases over to the right side, and still some Widow Mines dotted throughout the field are going to make it incredibly difficult to reestablish. There's still 6 Overseers, Lurkers, a single Ultraless, Chitinous Plating on the way, 35 drones mining from the base down the center. The anti-air is severely limited for Reynor. He has 4 Hydras, 5 Corruptors. There's still a few Ghosts mixed in. The Lurkers, this hatchery just popped like an overripe tomato. The Liberator's providing so much support on the back line. The Infestor doesn't have enough energy for Fungal. The Concave is too damn good. And the Lurkers, they're helping do a lot of damage to the Terran. But Clem is tearing right through. The Ultraless pops out a day late and several $1,000s short. The medevac count is so damn high. Without the Infestors to hold him down, the Ultras are just a target larger than your mother, which is an impressive sight. The Corruptor's over to the right side. The Ultra just died. Another Queen dead. How many? 3 Queens remain. Infestors popping up. He's going to reburrow. It saves the Marauder. Scans again. Ultra's over to the right side. And Clem just styling on Reynor now. Picking his Marauders up, doing the hokey pokey, and dropping them all about. It's just, Reynor can't keep up. There's Widow Mines scattered throughout the field. Look at, like, who's the Zerg? There's a 3 or 4 Widow Mines slash GG slash the most Italian GG. 800 5,000 resources lost in 20 minutes. A hectic brawl. But I feel like Clem lost 2 planetary fortresses, but he had his bases throughout. He never really lost momentum. Even though Reynor had the bank, until you have the reliable anti-air to knock the medevacs and the liberators out of the sky, you don't have a winning position, even if you have the money. And that was the struggle. He could win a fight. He could win a battle. That's a long way from winning the war. Clem takes game number 1. We're headed to Black Rock for game 2. Wow. These two, every time. The 2 fastest players in the game. Cyril might be the most efficient. Cyril has a tendency, like, Cyril's incredibly fast. But he actually has over 100 less average APM than Reynor usually. Maybe. It's usually 450 to 500. And you might be like, Winter, aren't you the one who has the low APM challenge? All right? Aren't you the one who, at great length, explained that APM is not everything? Yes. But when players are so close to reaching the potential max, the logarithmic rhythmic curve of skill, well, having another 10, 20 actions per minute sometimes does really matter. And Reynor might have been able to react, but being proactive is so incredibly difficult against that unit composition. Clem on fire. And let's not pretend like there's any other Terran to do it like that. Maru can be incredibly good as well when he's in form, which is semi-rare, but when Clem's firing on all cylinders, he's the best player in the world. I don't think there's a doubt about that. Like, if he can keep himself from getting tilted, which is a real concern and a real issue. I mean, it's a more Terran-specific thing, but he's the best player. Unfortunately, getting tilted is one of the easiest things to do. So I think Reynor needs to take a different angle here. Playing the heads-up, straight-up macro game, and it was close. But he went directly into Hive Tech, which allowed Clem to get the initiative with the first medevacs and siege tank push. And he never really let it go. The counterattacks are great. They got a lot of damage done. But the war of attrition did not go in his favor. But important to think long-term. Which is why, even several months out, I'd like to remind you about Homestory Cup 30. Next April 8th to 11th. Yes, the tropical island for Homestory Cup 20. But Homestory Cup 30 will be at Snow World in Germany, where you can meet all your favorite players and casters, and also me, because it wouldn't be Snow World without winter. Or so I'd like to think. So, and we're telling you this early, so because obviously flights, accommodations, all that. But you can find more at the link in the description. You can join the Discord, the Homestory Cup 30 Discord, where if you got questions and concerns, or even compliments, well, you can direct it to Take TV. That's not my... I'm just here to let you know. So make sure to mark your schedules, your diary, your papyrus, whatever it is that you need, your totems, your Ouija boards. The Ouija boards? That's the one. For April 8th to 11th. And even if you can't make it, there are ways to support directly, like to the prize pool and production and all that. So I'm looking forward to it. Of course, this from Homestory Cup 29. There's a lot of planning to be done. And it seems that Reynor is planning to do a somewhat similar strategy, though he's got significantly earlier Zergling speed. He tried to get that third base. Clem just darts in immediate. Hey, this is private property. Is it getting hot in here, Brenda? Or is it just... Shut up, Lucille. That wasn't funny the first time. You could say our drones are getting charbroiled. Shut up, Lucille. Sorry. I am blacked out for a moment. The Hellions off to the left. And Clem just picking apart. Knocks out the creep tumors. He only gets 2 drones, which is... but he only lost the Reaper. So everything else can be repaired. So effectively no losses. A significant mining time reduction. A couple drones taken out, and creep mostly atrophied is not a bad start. Especially when keeping Zerg under control in that mid-game scenario where it seems like they got buffed is possibly the most important thing. Our Spore Crawler's on the way. No lair even started. So the Cloak Banshees are going to be quite dangerous on the field, though the Spore Crawlers are done, so getting anywhere close is going to be... He's actually repositioning the Spore, and Clem going to use that extra second to potentially pick off a drone or two. Which is, you know, very Clem. Evolution Chambers on the way. 3rd command center for Clem. He's going for Barracks 2 and 3 before adding on the engineering base, which a greater focus on making sure he has the units out earlier as opposed to going for the later upgrades. And the timing is very important. Like getting the 3 racks before the double engineering bay means that you're trying to hit a 1-1 timing as opposed to 2-2. Because if you go for the upgrades before you go for your production, you're simply just not going to have enough units to do much for quite a while. The upgrade rush style might be effective and great clickbait. Like and subscribe if you agree. But does not leave you with a lot of resources to get your production early. But Reynor, eating losses on either side, but the Zergling's gonna wrap around. He's just going for the drones, but the Zerglings get the full surround. Jams him into the corner. And, well, not great, not terrible. 5 more drones dead. Banshee in the main. One of them was picked off. The lair is finally completed. No Baneling nest for Reynor, which may be intentional, as Reynor on the record saying that Banelings against Clem is a losing battle, to say the least. I think he said something more like useless, just because Clem is so incredibly good at both target fire, pickup micro, which is even easier now with the new pickup key, which is creating some strife with some serious bugs. We're not talking about ultras. I'm sure you'll see some of that, but not in this series. But very simply, spending any amount of gas you spend on Banelings, especially before you're near 200 supply or hive tech, is a significant delay on the rest of your build. Now, of course, being dead is a significant delay on the rest of your build as well. So sometimes it is necessary. So Reynor without Banelings against Clem with soon-to-be 1-1 Marines with combat shield. Actually, Reynor already has his Carapace upgrade done and started on +2. A significant advantage. Clem going to try the double drop on the other side. He's setting up to keep the creep at bay and potentially pressure the 4th base. And behind it, 65 SCVs to 72 drones. And with a couple mules dropped, that actually means Clem has a similar, if not slightly higher, mineral income. They'll expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. Okay. Medevac leaving a scout in the... Yikes. The double drop darting directly in. He's gonna drop the Widow Mines out first. Reynor splits off just enough Zerglings to draw the shots and minimizes the damage. But the Queens, Infestors are out. Hive is nearly completed. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no! My God! Oh, 22! Well, the Widowmine's doing terrible, terrible damage. Oh, no. Oh, it fires faster, but not quite fast enough. Adrenal glands and an Ultralisk Cavern now on the way. Reynor with an Ultralisk Rush. Against Clem going Mass Hellbat. A very interesting choice. Did he even get Drilling Claws? It's going to go straight for the Hellbats with Blue Flame, which used to be a much more common strategy. Hellbats were slightly nerfed. They do slightly less damage with upgrades against light, but not enough that they're nearly useless against Zerglings. So we'll see. He just abandons the base. Reynor giving up this base to have a chance to get Ultralisk out. He does not have Chitinous Plating on the way. He's invested so much in getting the damage done here. The Queens, the Infestors, the Overlords. No. Overlord's freaking out. The Fungal's coating all the Marines. The infection going around everywhere lately. Meanwhile, the Zergling counter gonna force a fourth base to lift. Unfortunately, Reynor's fourth is just dead, which is significantly worse economically. The Ultra's about to pop out of those eggs. Don't ask how that works. The Fungal comes out, but he picks up in the last second. He slips by. Chitinous Plating starts. And without the armor, the Marines can do actual damage here. Clem dropping more bases than a Skrillex album at the moment, but eventually, with the Ultras already out, there are Marauders, Liberators on the way. Ultras, very good against Hellbats, though. Now, Hellbats are mineral only, which leaves a lot more. Clem has 700 gas, because Hellbats don't cost any gas, which is convenient, but also kind of a rare situation. So, even though he isn't mining from too many, he's got a lot banked up. He hasn't started his 3-3 infantry weapons and armor, which is pretty significant. I don't know if oversight is the right word, but a delay that he can't necessarily afford, especially when he's dealing with this sort of composition. Reynor going with the full brawn. He's got 108 Zerglings, 5 Ultralisks, and 4 Infestors banking up energy. The Ghost Academy has just begun. EMP a distant dream. The Banshee's still alive, because of course it is. The Spore Crawler repositioning, as Reynor is suffering heavily economically. But he's going to try to trundle through. Caught between a rock and a hard place, though. Microbial Shroud could actually be devastating here, as almost all the damage is actually conventional ranged. He's back to the Widow Mines. What? We went through a bit of a time warp there. Is Clem murdering his own units in order to get more Marauders and Widow Mines? He is shooting his own Marines in the back in order to get much more powerful units against the Ultras, which, yep, Hellbats and Marines are about as mediocre as you could get. They're essentially just cannon fodder, or ultra fodder, where they do almost no damage to the well-upgraded Ultras. We're going to have +3 Carapace and Chitinous Plating before the Marines and Marauders have +3/+3. The quadruple drop over to the bottom right corner, though not entirely fun. Coming down the center, Clem is maxed out. He's got 3 more command centers on the way. He knocks out the hatchery in the bottom right corner. And right now, Reynor cannot afford to lose his 4th base again. The first time, he could recover, because Clem didn't yet have his 4th, and he didn't have the tech. But if he doesn't at least trade, he's in a terrible position economically. The Zerglings, the Cracklings, are just ripping through the wall. You can finally see the Adrenalings in action. The ridiculous attack speed. The hatchery, the transfuses, non-existent. The medevacs pick up, but they're on hold position. One of them knocked out of the sky before Clem realizes. 16 SCV is dead. The Zerglings get through, and Clem will clean up the attack. The reinforcements will join up. Another hectic... Okay, what's happening? The ghost count is not nearly high enough. The Corruptors, he cloaks the Banshee just in time. The Ultras in the midfield, though, where a lot of Marauders are soaking the Baneling hits, but also getting chewed up and spit out by the Ultras themselves. The Corruptors The fact that he has Corruptors at all is a huge deal. The drop comes back in. You can't transfuse a hatchery that doesn't yet exist. But he knocks out one of the medevacs, going for a second, picks up into a third. The Corruptors will clean up the rest, but Clem still has the economy. He has now, what, 4 bases mining? He knocks out that hatchery in the corner, finally knocks down the medevacs. Reynor? He's going for, it's almost like a Protoss sort of situation for Reynor. Kind of awkward, but where he's prioritizing making sure he has the best possible death ball. Yeah, sure, there's some counterattack. Wow, those Zerglings are dangerous. Meanwhile, down the center, the Fungal, he catches the Ghost, he catches the Medevacs. A Congress of Corruptors will knock down the Liberators. The Ultras around the corner, drags the Widowmon, hits over the top. And with that, Clem's army is broken and cloven in twain. The last Liberator taken out, unburrows a few Infestors and catches some of the Dregs. And suddenly Clem goes from 200 supply to barely half that in seconds. Caught out on the open field. Reynor knew what he had, and he waited for his moment. Clem finally dug too deep and too greedily. He thought that walking slightly outside his base was safe. But with that many Ultras and any amount of Infestors, this time he took a step too far and was punished immediately. Now, it wasn't free. Wow. Reynor destroys 11,000 minerals and 3,600 gas over the last couple minutes. Oh, those are GG scans right there from Clem. He just scanned the bottom left and the left side and the bottom left. Oh my god. The left and the right corners. If Reynor had those bases, I think Clem would have left the game. I guess it's technically important to note, but since he doesn't, that actually means that Reynor, despite destroying that much army, still does not have a decisive grip on the game. Because he lost a lot of his Ultras, many of his Infestors, some of his Corruptors as well. And Reynor does not have... he's finally adding in some Banelings, realizing that at some point they are required. And it's at this point, when you have 1,600 gas in the bank, that you can't bring it to next game. So, the Serral Festers, just waiting for their moment. Clem has scratched his way back off the mule stimulus checks, back to 180 supply. These two are so incredibly good. Like, a devastating fight. But despite the losses, the economy for both sides was still high, which means they could rebuild relatively quickly. And they've done so. Clem, 8 Ghosts, 10 Widowmines, 5 Medevacs, and 7 Marauders, against 7 Ultras, 10 Corruptors, 5 Infestors, and of course, plenty of Lings and Banes. The Widowmines could make all the difference. So far have not. The Corruptors potentially knocking things down. The Infestor! At point blank, unburrows. The Ultras cleaving through, but the Ghosts line up a volley of snipes. The Fusillade is enough. Another... Oh no! The Fungal from the back! And just the Ghost left behind. And that's not enough. They don't have the energy to stop this. The Corruptors have knocked the Medevacs out of the sky. And that's such an important part. That's the key that unlocks the victory. You need air control. It doesn't matter if you're Zerg or Terran. Having that air control allows you to pin your opponent back and potentially knock him out. He cuts through another planetary. The Ghost will obliterate 2 more Ultralists. But there's more where that came from. He has the economy to refill. 4 more Ultras in production. And I think the Italian Stallion is on the board. GG. Reynor strikes back. Able to catch the army on the field. Not once, but twice. And just cuts right through it. You can't let him go for a second. Reynor with a very different style this time around. A lot more focused. Well, I guess different mindset. It was much more important to keep the right army together with enough spellcasters and the core army composition, as opposed to trading left and right, which I don't think is... Reynor does not want to play that style. Make Zerg swarmy again is a common theme, but... The Death Ball spellcaster style is much more reminiscent of his well-accomplished teammate, Cyril. And for good reason. One fungal. And can make or break the entire game. As we saw there. Still deadly. So technically the Infestors now have an auto attack as well. But since almost every relevant moment where they're being used, the Infestors are actually just unburrowing and casting. They do not have an auto attack while underground. They're not lurkers. Believe it or not. So, game number 3 is on Rainfall. Honestly, once we fix the lighting a bit, our most beautiful map, in my opinion. Chill. All right. A nice soothing rain to accompany our mass murder. It was a dark and stormy night. Come back to us. These two. I really gotta... That was a game I think you could break down several times. Both games. Every moment. Some of it is strategy, and some of it is just speed. There is... StarCraft 2 it's a real-time strategy game, and it really puts a lot of emphasis on that real-time part of things, doesn't it? And that's why you're content to watch and hopefully have your day made a little bit better, as opposed to playing quite as regularly. I'm being nice, okay? I can do that. It's less nice when I point it out, but, you know, we'll take what we can get. Or else. Give me, edit that out. I don't... SCV Scout coming across. And, like, there's a simple requirement. Brood War is even worse. Like, for those... I don't know, who are we insulting today? We cast a wide net. But Brood War, you pretty much have to get 3 wrist surgeries in order to be competitive enough to make your SCVs regularly mine. And then, another 3 wrist surgeries to make sure you can actually control your 12-unit limit control groups. And then, maybe, we can talk about having some strategy of some sort. But, StarCraft 2 with a significantly lower, yet still incredibly high requirement of just things that need to be done. For Zerg, you got your creep spread, your overlord placement, your injects. For Terran, it's the Sim City is incredibly important. The constant supply depots, the management of the SCVs, the mules, technically, you still have to remember them on time. And the management of production. Now, this is one of the most important things. This is why Clem is so much better than you and me. Is one, multitasking doesn't exist. But you can simulate it very well. The difference between someone who uses their resources half a second before they need the unit and someone who queues up a bunch of SCVs like Clem? Let's see. Does he start another SCV? Literally, sorry. He's microing his Reaper during all this. Look, he's not building another SCV. Not yet. But 1 second, just 1 second before that SCV completes, he's building another one. That means he has those 50 minerals up until that second. And that might be enough to get a barracks or a supply depot without skipping any other part of your build. It's just doing that while also... Let's go to the Clem camp for a moment. While also microing your Reaper, microing your Hellions, doing the rest of your build. This is his selection, by the way, in case you're wondering. No, it's not magic. It's just speed. As constantly going back and forth, making sure getting exactly what he needs the moment he needs it, and not a second before, because that's a waste of potential resources. And this, in many ways, is why your bank won't let you transfer your money on the same day, because they want to gamble with it. But I digress. What I'm saying is Terran is like gambling, where if you're the house, you always win. Gimme, also edit that one out. That's just convoluted. I don't... I get the 1-1-1 yet again. I need to stress, like, these are the kind of things that I feel like never quite have the time to point out. But with the beauty of the 8-worker start is we have another minute or two. I saw some, I'm gonna generously say, mildly teasing comments about how casters would have to fill a couple more minutes each game. And oh, that would be so hard. Well, I'm doing my best. So, and so far we've seen, compared to the previous patch, a very similar start. But, you know, it takes another minute or so. But the Zergling count is damn high. He's gonna try to get the wraparound. That's a lot of Hellions. The Queens, the Spore Crawler in position. Your turn. This is restricted lair space, you son of a bitch. Susan, we're gonna get demonetized again. It's like an hour in the video. They don't even care now. Nobody has this sort of attention span. I don't know. They just want you to watch shorts anyway. I don't... Sorry, Hive Mind took over for... Third command center. Almost completed barracks 4 and 5. Another bio play out of Clem. And Reynor has a Baneling nest significantly earlier. Looks like we're going for a quicker Baneling speed this time around. The Banshee's still finding a few pickups. The second Banshee, the first one, of course, is currently in the unit's lost tab. And Clem with the 1-1. Reynor will have the Carapace upgrade advantage, but Clem will have 1-1 before Reynor fills in the melee attack. Lair's already done. Baneling nest and Baneling speed immediately is the choice. So if you're going to go Banelings, you do it as hard as possible. It seems to be Reynor's plan here, to say the least. Couple more hatcheries on the way. One macro hatch in the main, especially if you're going to go Massling Bane. We haven't seen anything but Massling Bane. The Hydras in game number 1 were after Hive Tech had already begun. Reynor speeding his way up the tech tree, trying to make full use of that extra larva, which amounts to several more. Just generally trying to accelerate the production. Here comes Clem, though, with a tank on the high ground. Unfortunately, because Reynor creep spreaded. No, I think the first one's right. Means that the Zerg rocks actually won't bleed out, because they usually get dehydrated off the creep. You can't heal them, but it stops them from dehydrating and dying at the 8-minute mark, which is actually a little bit ironic here, as with another angle to easily attack this would make it significantly less inconvenient to deal with. Meanwhile, Clem, the key part of all this, it's not just this attack. It's the follow-up. Clem, combat shield, he's got 5 racks. The armory is going to complete momentarily. So it still is, keeps repositioning the tank. Hydralisk Den is on the way, and this time it's going to be well before. It's going to be well before any sort of hive. Okay, not that well before, maybe. Infestation Pit starts alongside it. Siege Tank and Marines combine to take down the Banelings easily, but there's another double drop over to the right side. Reynor anticipating it, trying to bait him into exactly this, decides to just go for the Marines anyways. But over to the left side, both players clearly distracted by the activities over to the right. Clem diving forward. The Queen slurps up some. Gonna try to get on top of the tank, but it's a little bit too late. I don't know if he can get to the high ground. He was gonna try anyway to pick up. Siege Tank target fire on the Banes. Another target. Reinforcements. Double drop down the center. He's gonna drop out, but the Zerglings are already there, of course. A Baneling mine in the pond. He hasn't yet revealed the burrow, so this actually could find some success. Unfortunately, a little bit off center. A scan? Won't quite spot it. Oh! Some mines are more equal than others. As the Widow mine. Oh no, not another. Oh my. Oh, golly gee. Maybe 2 Gs. That's a lot of damage. He did drop out of the... Jimmy! It appears the battle report is not there. Oh, we're going to relive this moment. We don't have the battle report on this particular game, unfortunately, as I think the player started without it. But the Widow mine's just doing a significant amount of damage, which is an understatement to say the least. And now Clem. Reynor was looking the other way as the Baneling mine could have been triggered. And now I'm sure he's a little bit triggered himself. The spread parts the Red Sea. The Widow mines will burrow. They have drilling claws, and oh no! And he tries to retreat back, but unfortunately that Baneling mine does not have the range of its more Terran-oriented counterpart. Meanwhile, the Zerg rocks are finally taken down by their supposed counterpart. The Baneling mine at least scouts the medevacs headed towards the main. The Sporimeter is there. The spores in order to zone out the medevacs, but I don't think that's going to stop Clem. It's raining men. Hallelujah. As a single spore will be taken down and giving him a little bit more breathing room. He'll loses another medevac to the Queen. A single cloak Banshee. That actually show up? You could actually see... Huh. That's pretty cool, actually. You could see... I doubt he's playing on the graphic settings that you could actually see the rotor wash there, but... The Banshee flying over the pond. This game is 16 years old, alright? In a year, it'll be as old as Brood War when it got remastered. You guys looking forward to StarCraft 2 Remastered? Marines! Over to the right side. The Widow mines! Oh, so much damage. So much damage across the board. The field runs red with the blood of both sides, but the rain will wash it away quickly. Viper's on the way. The Banshee will finally be taken out alongside one of the medevacs, and Clem suffering dramatic. Oh, but the Widow mine! We did just a sound clip of that, so I don't have to say it every 4 seconds. Oh, but the Widow mines! The Banelings are rolling in, though. 5 SCVs dead. But there's no more Banelings to keep the Marines at bay. More morphing. Retargets onto the Hydra. And oh, aimbot activated. Targets every single Baneling. Will chase the Hydras down. And he's just tearing through all of it. The hubris of Reynor to think that he could fight off of creep. And he's put down for his efforts. Every single Hydra, every single Zergling, every single Baneling. And not in a fruitful manner, but instead a devastatingly poor one. The Vipers have the energy, but Clem darting through. And the Vipers again. The Banelings rolling in, but the Widow mine will thin them out. And it cost its own life, but now Clem has retained the momentum. It's Hydraling Bane with some Vipers against the Marines, the Mines, the Medevacs, but Liberators are being added in. And 3-3 upgrades are closing in as well. Reynor does not have any further tech to work with. His upgrades are comparable. +3 melee is going to be a little bit later. But Clem, honestly, this series is more based on momentum than unit composition. Whoever won a decisive fight gets to dictate the pace of the game until either they make a mistake or they're able to carry it through. And Reynor went too far after winning a fight on his side. Now Clem definitely has the momentum. Another Widowmon hit. Another one. Another one. That last one not nearly as effective, but spots the Vipers. Targets down one of the Vipers, but a parasitic bomb splits off the medevac. Wait, that's 2. Another Widow mine, and oh no, the Banelings are hit! He comes off to the right side and actually burrows a Zergling underneath. Loses 10 SCVs, but again, Clem is going to be chasing down the army on the field. Does he have concussive shells? No. Building some ghosts. 90 to 71 workers. Reynor has a a massive income advantage because he forced the workers away from the right side. The Hydras, the Lings, the Banes coming over the bridge. An awkward pathing for both sides here. The Zergling counter in a base that's entirely undefended, but he just runs right. Clem preemptively backing. Oh, the Widowmine! And oh, the Liberators. Once again, overlapping. And without Corruptors, there's no fighting into this. The counterattack is there. Reynor actually a bit supply blocked. Clem will be losing a chunk of his SCVs, but he's still nearly maxed out, giving him a massive army supply lead. Reynor loses another hatchery. He's just going to go right into the main, but the Spore Crawlers are going to make him pay quite a toll in the process. A siege tank in the mix, but he can just annex the entire main base. Here we go again. The Liberators all over the main. The Viper's parasitic bombs, but Reynor has to try to fight his way into his own main base. Parasitic bombs helping out. The Hydra's thinning out. The Banelings rolling through. But is it enough? Clem just trickling units across the map. The parade push celebrating the end of Reynor. The Clempire just strikes back. Clem just... the momentum for Reynor completely shattered. There was no answer. You need the air control. Reynor's one big opportunity was the Hydraling Bane on the third base. But he just brought a little bit too little. And it seemed a bit too late. And from there, just the momentum so clear. He had the income. But the army size? That was the difference. For the last 3-4 minutes straight. And honestly, from that first Hydra fight, which is right around 5 minutes ago, Clem dictating the pace of the game. And he goes on to match point. So evenly matched. But I do think Clem, as has been the case for quite a while, has the edge. But still, a single mistake. And here's the thing. It's not even a mistake until... I don't think either player has really made any blatant mistakes. It's just in hindsight, or as they're making it. Just attacking a little bit too far. Realizing, oh, just not quite enough Banelings. And against anyone but Clem, having 15 Banes against like 20 Marines would be more than enough. Against Clem, you need like 30. The Widowmine's just doing devastating damage. Trickling across the field. And that's really what suffers a Zerg. If you kind of lose momentum, you can't easily clean the Widowmines and counterattack at the same time. You need Overseers left, right, and center. You need Overseers with the attack, otherwise the Widowmines just blunt it dramatically. And that's just... even for arguably the fastest player in the world, Reynor. Almost impossible to keep up with. So. Clem, up 2 games to Reynor's 1. We'll see if he can adjust. He didn't go for the Hive Tech rush, but instead... leaning on the Hydras in the mid-game, which... mixed bag. So, much like Banelings, Hydras are quite expensive. They slow down the rest of your tech progression, whatever it might be, pretty dramatically. And you need, like, there's a reason Hydras, I believe, are the only unit in the game with 3 separate upgrades. That not including their basic upgrades. They've got Hydra Range, Hydra Speed, and then Hydra Lunge. Which, of course, is Hive Tech. But because if you do build up a critical mass, They're so powerful. And that's why they're gate-kept by these upgrades. Now, you can make your arguments about whether or not they should be, but that's currently the case, and the basic thinking is if they had more power at earlier stages of the game, they'd simply be too good. And that's why it can be difficult to build up that critical mass. The Reaper. Oh, the bounce! And he kills the drone! Devastating. Emotionally. And, you know, physically, as... No, you can't lose two. That's illegal. No, he comes in. If that grenade had hit the queen, there's a chance he darts in. I don't... No quick third. Gonna be Zergling speed. Jumps in into the Nova worship section. Here on Eternity's Edge. No more gas mining. I'm sure Clem taking note of that. Juking and jiving. Juke Skywalker over here. Swings around and, like, he'll never stop. Remember, the difference between Clem and everyone else, well, not everyone else, but between you and me, is also doing his build perfectly while taunting the queens. Pops another creep tumor. Bold of you to drop a creep tumor while Clem exists. But eventually, yeah, he got one at the natural, but he could come in and... No, it's a little bit late now. It's going to be a Banshee on the way. Sticking with it. So far, serving him well. The Reaper just will not stop. Oh, the Hellions swing around to the left side. Queens just giving them the side eye. Or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure they have. I don't know how many eyes. All right. See more on OnlyFans. Patreon link in the description. Spores on the way. Right. Looks like he's got him timed out quite well. Though the one of the third is going to be just a little bit late, it seems. No lair. So we're going to be dealing with all this without overseers, which makes the Banshees just potentially infuriating. It's a single knitting needle to drive it away for a moment. Oh, he built a fourth spore in order to make sure he had detection out the front. Which, it's like, why not just build more spores? Well, every time you build a spore, you kill a drone. Or promote it, is how they phrase it. But either way, that drone is no longer mining and use paid 75 minerals. So, the Banshee, for every extra spore you build, the Banshee got a kill. Except it's better, because it happened before the Banshee even showed up. That's why building like 5-6 spores just to make sure Banshees don't get kills. Reynor would rather lose 2 or 3 extra drones than build extra spores, because economically that's probably better. And of course, Clem is not going to fly into spores, not on a regular basis. He's going to find the one spot, no matter what. And, well... the lair is done. The drone's already on the run. Reynor clearly not having very much fun. But... it looks like the Banshees are the ones who, flew a little too close to the sun. So far, the Queens. Oh, Spire is on the way. Mutas, maybe for the first time, gets a couple, and the Spore's just not quite there. A strong gust of wind would be enough, but unfortunately, the Knitting Needle's not able to bring that to bear. The creep tumors constantly. Clem with his third base. The Spire? So Reynor's had 71 drones. He did lose 7, but a lot of that is because he was so greedy. because he, yeah, greedy is relative, but because he expanded so quickly, and that's why he took that extra damage. The Banshees, with about a quarter Banshee of health between them, will retreat. While the double drop unloads in a... Oh, so close. He wants that creep tumor so bad. But the scan's gonna run out. One shot. But sometimes that's the difference. 5 mutas on the way. Was the Spire scouted? No. He saw the lair. He saw the gas. But Reynor has shown Hydras several games thus far. Honestly, none of this screams mutas. Barely even whispers mutas. So... Now, Clem is going for Marines, Mines, and Medevacs, which is a very good anti-muta composition. But if he's caught off guard and starts losing SCVs without any missile turrets, obviously... Oh, big job, huh? Are you going to help? Nope, I don't. Widowmon's pushing forward. Reynor slipping around the corner of the map with the mutas. It's going to go directly into the main. And so far, Clem, with absolutely no inkling of this. Oh no, the Widowmine even unburrowed at the base. Not even sure why there's a Widowmine there, but going directly into the main. No missile turret on the way, absolutely no defense. And Clem will have to scramble back to defend. He's got 2-2 on the way for the Marines. And, well, it's just Marines for now. And I feel like for the foreseeable future, gonna just kill off some more of them. Straight up fighting, because one at a time. And meanwhile, the Zergling and Baneling count is so damn high. Looks like Reynor is inclined to potentially go all in. The biggest weakness of the mutas, besides a direct fight, is once the Terran gets to 200 supply and can force said fight. As eventually you just can't get enough done back at home, but... Right now, Reynor is at 200 supply to just 163. He's going to have 1-1 upgrades to the same, as Clem is still over a minute away from 2-2. Baneling speed will be done already. So there's no reason not to try to fight this army on the field. He's got 120 Zerglings. And he's not afraid to use them. In fact, he's more than happy to do so. The Banshee! Would you stop? The mutas will finally knock it out of the sky. The Zergling count's so damn high. The mutas continue to fly. I'm sure Clem giving a dramatic sigh. As this game unlikely to end in a tie. No matter how badly things go awry. Will it be the Terrans who, finally, the ones to cry? I won't lie. That was going to happen anyways. Do or die. Well, using the Hellbats to make sure some Zerglings potentially fry. The creep, spreading, the hatchery. The end is nigh. But the Zerglings, like 100 Zerglings in the third base. The Thor, uniquely ill-suited to deal with this. A dozen SCVs dead. The mutas fighting heads up. 2-2 is now done. Drilling Claws denied on the base right outside. The Lings and Banes trying to chase down 20 SCVs dead. Trying to kill the Orbital Command, not going to find it. And, well, Clem survives for now. Nearly equal army supply. Reynor ends up losing his hatchery. More mutas on the way. No infestation pit. No further tech. He's all in. A muta Ling Bane. Clem has started his 3-3 upgrades. His economy is significantly hamstrung, but the closer he gets to 200 supply, the closer he gets to 3-3 infantry weapons and armor, the better off he is. The more mutas he takes out of the sky almost instantly the moment the Marines look at him, the better off he is. The better place, the more creep he's able to drive back and the Widowmine spread out, the better off he is. Reynor is now fighting against the clock. He needs to find some damage before Clem is able to deal it in turn. The Lings and Banes, Clem on the open field. The Banelings trickling through, trying to drag out the Widowmine hits. It's not enough. The mutas committing to the counterattack. And Reynor, this is the damage he was looking for. The Muta's fighting heads up, knocks out a few more. The command center itself just goes directly flapping into the main. Clem fighting on the field. And knocks out the reactor on the starport. Might knock out the starport itself, which is one way of solving that problem. And, yeah, just gonna take it out. No more medevacs. There's still 9 of them on the field for now. Dropping the mules, takes out the gold base over to the left side. The Muta's still a long way off from being able to fight this. Knocks out another Muta. Make that 2. The Thor picked up the rest of the army as well. Putting the vac and medevac there, but the Zerglings still in the mineral line, getting a few more SCVs. 69 are all that remain. Nice enough to continue the production, but the Muta count high enough to threaten the main base. The trickle of Marines out the barracks is simply not enough. You need at least a stream. Potentially a river? Well, and so far he simply doesn't have it. That's the Thor juggling the Widow Mine, and it's not enough. The Muta's just +1 flyer attacking Clem. Getting a little bit desperate. He's going effectively all in. But dozens of Banelings on the field. The army supply is still damn close to even. 3-3 upgrades closing in, but they're not quite done yet as the Banelings on the edge of the creep easily splits. There's more Banelings on the way. 3-3 gonna finish potentially moments before this fight. About as good as it's gonna get for Clem. But is it good enough? The Banelings still splitting back. +3-3 done. +2 flyer attack in the skies for the Mutalists. Still fighting, and Clem just taps out. And you might see, well, it might seem a little early, but the Baneling count is so damn high. Clem denies us that satisfying completion, if you would, of the Baneling bust. But the sheer amount of units and the level of production is too damn high, and Reynor ties up the series 2-2. The Muta's enough. He gains the momentum early, and Clem never able to turn the tide entirely. The Muta's mostly on the other side of the map, and if you could ever get damage done in the Terran base, you're having a great time with Mutas. It's just usually the risk, the Muta risk, is simply if they scout it or are aggressive enough. The Muta's maybe too little and too late, and you're forced into playing defense or base trading at Terran, and neither is great for your livelihood. But here we are. The ace match. 2 games to 2. The rank 1 Terran in the world against the rank 2 Zerg. Where is the line drawn with the new patch? Is Zerg too strong? Is the power overwhelming? Or is it just the Protoss who underwhelm? So far, I mean, these two have been about even throughout their entire careers. Reynor, I think just a quarter step behind throughout much of this series. But he was able... You can make up for it by being a step ahead with your tech, which he was able to do in Game 2 and Game 4 with the Ultras and then the Mutas. The speed run to Ultras in on Blackrock, and then the quick Mutas, of course, last game. That makes up for the, like in an even money game, like I guess an even money game is going Ling Bane and ending up losing your 4th base because Clem's timings are so incredibly sharp. So, Old Sun Temple is a 4-player map, but vertical spawn positions are disabled, which means there are 2 scouting locations potentially. The Overlord will be spotted by the SCV and vice versa, so they both know where the other is. And I think this is better, best case scenario for Clem. Cross positions is obviously the longest rush distance, the most opportunity for things like Mutas and Zerglings to counterattack before you get even halfway across the map. There's the watchtower and the speed zones. It can be a nightmare to deal with a well-equipped Zerg. But in close positions here, Medivacs, Banshees, uniquely dangerous. as there's the mineral wall and the rock wall that makes it relatively hard to actually attack directly for Zerg, at least quickly. Well, early air units. Of course, this could cut both ways, where mutas could be stronger because of it as well. But mutas are a significant commitment, as we saw. But if they pay off, they look great. The Reaper gonna try to exact the toll. We'll see how many Zerglings, if any, it gets this time. Great micro to Reynor. That is kind of a given. Two more. Clem for, I want to say the first time this series. Going for a 3cc before starport. And correctly realizing that the overlords are going to be nowhere close to scout this. So he's going to he's going to cut some corners here. He's not going... it's a 3-2-on-1. 3 command centers, 2 barracks, a factory. Though he did go for the factory before the second starport, which means he will have Hellions. I think he's trying to mask the fact that he's going for medevacs. So every other game in this series, he has gone Hellion, Banshee, with a slightly later third. Now he's going 2 barracks with the stim and a quick third command center. Which means... well, Reynor is certainly going to expect the Banshee, and he has no easy way to scout it. Because he can't get an Overlord in reliably. So he just, like, the price of assuming there's... If there is a Banshee, and, if there isn't a Banshee, and he builds spores, Reynor is a little behind. Like, because Clem, of course, didn't spend on that tech. If there is a Banshee and he doesn't build spores, he probably loses the game. So, that is the risk you run. We'll see if he ends up building the spores in a timely fashion. I'm sure Clem is trying to sell it here. He's shown... Well, the Reaper dies. Still no spores out of Reynor. Is he calling the bluff? The fact that the Hellions weren't with the Reaper may be a bit of a giveaway. But the double medevac drop. And here we are. God. So, before the patch, doing a 3-2-1-1 with 2 medevacs, the timing was about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I guess he doesn't have 16 Marines, but he did go Hellions as well. This is like less than 30 seconds, if that slower. Clem has ironed this build to a incredibly smooth, unwrinkled sheen here. And is going to use it to greater. He just picks up the medevacs. The Zerglings are in position to deal with this. But the threat of Brenda! Oh my god, there's one place we need to creep, and guess where we don't have it? Right there! Right in between. You see? Look down! I see it, Susan. I see it. Yes! Just calm down. I'm calming up! And just juggling the medevacs back and forth. Sorry. Now, the same thing is very awkward on the other side. As Reynor has to expand past the rocks, the lair's only halfway done. These medevacs already loses an Overlord. Now, if Clem loses any of these medevacs, or even a chunk of the Marines, there is nothing protecting his base, besides a siege tank and his reinforcements. But he will lose a huge amount of map control. Every part of the build went into this. But Reynor, not even having lair tech, he has 3 hatches on the way. The northern base is spotted. Clem going to redirect the Marines. And he's got another couple medevacs on the way. The Zerglings may try to chase him down. Picks up before it can be too meaningful. Might actually pick up one of the Hellions as well. Softens up some of the Zerglings. But he can drop behind the mineral line. It's going to be almost impossible to deal with. The infestation pit is halfway done. Reynor's going to try to rush Hive again. It feels like it's going to end up being a 3-base Hive. Because... what else? These drops are just not going to stop. The Queens are in position. Reacts a bit awkward for some of the Marines caught on the outside. Reynor tried to mine through the mineral wall, but didn't quite get it finished in time. And now Clem can just drop on the other side. There's just one more trip remaining. But Clem putting the eye in terrain, or eye in Terran here, and using the terrain. Please clap, like and subscribe. Chasing down these medevacs, just a constant stinging of the Marines from either side. He hasn't been able to take down the mineral wall. The alternative 4th base, Reynor is technically ahead on supply. He's got the Hive on the way. The 2-2 upgrades are also in his favor. So, technically, many things are going well for Reynor on paper. But, I'll let you know. I'm 1/3 Zerg myself. Some of my best friends are Zerg. This feels very bad. There's no easy answer here. He's desperately trying to hold on, claw his way, somewhat literally, to Hive Tech. He's got a couple infestors. There's a Baneling nest, technically. The infestors are spotted by the scan. The Queens have a lot of energy to work with, and I think they're gonna need it. He's making some Banelings. Clem regrouping. The Hive is nearly done. Siege tanks joining up. Clem is actually taking a 4th base during all of this. The Marines that split. There's no Bane speed. Oh my. Well, the Banes get some hits. The Queen's eating a whole lot of them. Reinforcements is a huge Zergling counter. Meanwhile, the Queen's pinned up against the base. The drone's just in the midst of everything. Fungal, but Clem! The Banelings are just gone. He drops right back out. The Zergling counterattack. Oh my, I need to... Sorry. He couldn't move. He didn't panic. He held his ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the last 2 he couldn't quite target fire. When he gets out, he juggles out of the Banelings. The Marines are jammed into the corner. They will hold their ground, and dozens upon dozens of Zerglings will die. He eventually gets through them. But Clem, I don't know who mined through this base, but Clem's going to use it for reinforcements. The 4th base is dead. There's no Ultralisk Cavern. There's no Baneling speed. There's no supply for Reynor. 157 to 134, and Clem is tearing his way through. It's 2-2. But if it continues on this trend, it's not going to be for long. The Marines are actually down a couple upgrades. The Ultralisk Cavern begins, and it's a few victories like that that Reynor desperately needs to get back into this game. As Clem now has a 4th base of mining. 73 to 77 workers. He's on top of the main. He came in the other side through. He pinned the Queen back in the corner. And the Frenchman, ever looking for an opportunity to cut down the monarchy, finally gets through the mineral wall. But Clem is off to a 30 supply lead. Reynor trying desperately to survive. The Widow Mine will burrow. Gonna get another big chunk of Zerglings. A Liberator is going to be almost uncontested. There's 4 Queens left. He's out in front of everything. Zerglings chewing through some of the supply depots. Zerglings working on the SCVs. But the Liberator helping out. He's dropping in the midst of the Liberation Zone. The medevacs in the main base. A few Marines will pop out and take down yet another Queen. And Clem just... he used everything he had. The micro, impeccable. Targets the Baneling with the Liberator, dropping out in the midst. Has probably too many medevacs left over. There's 3 Ultras on the way without chitinous plating. There's already Marauders. 3-3 has not yet started for Clem. The Liberator's still uncontested except by an ill-placed Spore Crawler. And that's a paperless right there. Clem can pop it like it's a party favor. And there it goes. Make that 2. Too many. G. Clem. Tearing through all of it. With some of the most unforgiving, unstoppable, relentless, inspiring, and I'll stop with inspiring. Terran play out there. Just when he's hot, he's scorching, and Reynor could not handle the fire. Still hanging with him, but every unit, the target fire, Banelings, Reynor trying to take his own advice, saying Banelings just aren't very useful against Clem. Proving his point, but getting the close positions on the last map, it was close in every way, but not close enough. Clem takes the victory 3-2. And Jimmy! And thank you for watching. Make sure to check out the information, the Discord for Homestory Cup 30, next April 8th to 11th, in person at Snow World. But thank you for watching. I hope it made a big chunk of your day at least a little bit better. Thank you to our Mule Tier patrons for bringing in the extra minerals. And if you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But Big Jiggy Devin Door, Kate Crazy Mouse, Mario Suit, very glad you still enjoy. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So thank you for watching. I hope I made your day at least a little bit better. Good luck. Have fun. And make sure to check out this video. Jimmy picked it out just for you. Hope to see you next time. Stay chill.